Don Lemon arrested, just released on no bail. Let's check it out. All right, welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. Fury tonight at the arrest of fired former CNN host Don Lemon for violating the FACE Act. Don Lemon was just released on no bail after his arrest in Los Angeles. He spoke to the media as he walked out of custody. Here's a little bit of that.
I will not stop now. In fact, there is no more important time than right now, this very moment, for a free and independent media that shines a light on the truth and holds those in power accountable.
Of course, we all remember Don Lemon from his years at CNN, where Chris Cuomo had to prop him up most nights and bleed into his show a little bit just to carry his ratings. Today, Don Lemon is a podcaster. He's not a very good one. Earlier this month, Don thought he was untouchable when he joined up with some of his Marxist Antifa-like buddies and stormed City's Church in St. Paul, Minnesota. You remember all of this, the chaos that it brought. We can listen to some of that natural sound from the video. The guy yelling, terrorizing these people in their church, a rather large group of radicals terrorizing innocent Americans, American Christians, as they prayed. Vile behavior. Protesters reportedly told small children their parents are Nazis, that they would burn in hell. And Lemon was right there loving every single minute of it right alongside. This is all described in Lemon's now unsealed indictment, a clear violation of the FACE Act. Several people from that day have now been charged. Don is trying to claim that his participation in this was protected by the First Amendment and freedom of the press. His friends in the leftist media are enraged by the charges.
They've arrested a journalist for the crime of doing his job. That's not a democracy. That's a police state.
There was something in the original Constitution that would have allowed them to arrest a black journalist like Don Lemon, and that was called the Fugitive Slave Clause.
It's about intimidating the free press. It's about intimidating First Amendment.
They are a part of a fascist movement in this country, and Americans are just not fascists. They're just not. They don't want that, and they don't want journalists getting arrested for doing their jobs.
A disturbing escalation against reporting in America. And I would also put it in the framework of protests. You know, this is part of an ongoing pressure campaign against protests.
Don Lemon is not a field reporter who showed up at this church after reports of chaos. So everything you just heard is a giant load. He can't even be considered an embed, like a reporter embedded with these radical lunatics. Lemon clearly was part of this illegal stunt. He was integral to its success. There was no doubt coordination between Don Lemon and this group before this illegal stunt. They planned it together. There is proof of that all over the videos that he took that day.
I can't tell you exactly what they're doing, but it's called Operation Pull Up, and it's Zacharia Armstrong, and she has been doing this since George Floyd, Dante Wright, and others, where they surprise people, catch them off guard, and hold them to account. And so that's what we're doing here. And then after we do this operation, you'll see it live. And these operations are surprise operations. Again, can't tell you where they're going.
Fangirling as hard as he possibly can. Can't tell you where we're going, what we're doing. We've had this plan. Can't say it just yet. You'll find out soon enough. He's part of the group. Here's video of Don Lemon, the reporter, handing out coffee and donuts to the church raiders. If we have that video, we do have it. There we go right there. Oh, look, coffee and donuts courtesy of Rich Don Lemon. Hey, I wanted to make sure you guys were warm and fed before you terrorized innocent Christians in a church today, and I went along for the ride. This does not happen in objective journalism, by the way. Here's Don kissing Zacharia Armstrong, the woman he was just talking about, the BLM organizer, the president of the Minneapolis NAACP, and church raider, who's also been charged in this filing. I did field reporting myself for a decade in this business. In the field, reporting almost every day. I never kissed anybody that I was covering. Don kissing Zacharia Armstrong, they're good friends. How long did they plan this? What do the text messages look like in the emails, you wonder? The claim that Don Lemon was there as a journalist is the same as the claim that Alex Preddy was just a peaceful protester who was brutally murdered by Border Patrol agents. It is all nonsense. As always, the left has to lie. They always have to lie. Nowhere near a majority of people would support their vision for this country, so they have to fraudulently present their case to the American people and take awful people and present them as victims when they're not. Here's Don Lemon admitting just how much he disliked the victims, the innocent Christians in that church who were terrorized, the victims of this illegal stunt.
They're entitled, and that entitlement comes from a supremacy, a white supremacy. And they think that this country was built for them, that it is a Christian country.
Oh, they're entitled. They're white supremacists, so they deserve to be terrorized in a church. All of this will be evidence in a very clear-cut case of violating the FACE Act and conspiracy to deprive rights. Don Lemon believed he, along with everyone else who raided that church to harass and scream at these people, had the right to do so, telling them they're going to hell, making little kids cry, making families run to their cars, fleeing the church to leave. They believe that Don Lemon believes that they had the right to be there and to do that. He said it himself.
What do you think of this?
I mean, this is unacceptable. It's shameful. It's shameful to interrupt a public gathering of Christians in worship. So,
but there were folks who will say,
I have to take care of my flock.
Okay, but listen, we live there's a Constitution and the First Amendment to freedom of speech and freedom to assemble and protest.
Don's never been the brightest. You don't have the right to do what they did that day. CNN, the network that fired Don Lemon for saying that women in their 50s are no longer in their prime, suddenly is very concerned about freedom of speech, backing Don Lemon, backing the man that they fired for offensive speech, claiming that he has free speech, which is just the funniest part of the whole thing, is that CNN decides to just dip a toe into it and embarrass themselves with their lack of understanding. At the end of the day, it all comes down to this FACE Act, though, which prohibits intimidating or interfering with anybody's worship or their access to reproductive health. So they did it on both sides, right? You have this big problem with religion versus, the actions of the non-religious in this country. And so they put together this FACE Act that kind of appeases both sides on this. The same people, though, who celebrate when grandmothers are sentenced to years in prison for that on the screen, years in prison, the ladies on the left, for singing church songs at abortion clinics. The people that celebrate those sentences are enraged tonight that Don Lemon cannot join up with the bottom of our society and terrorize people in a church. It is quite rich to hear Don Lemon claiming free speech as a defense, as he has over and over again. Lemon loathes free speech. A few years ago, Don nearly got a multi-million-dollar deal from Elon Musk and X before Elon discovered during that famous interview that he was about to hire a moron. Take a listen.
I was in mainstream media. We'd never promote things that would be anti-Semitic. We would never promote things that would...
anti-Semitic either. What you're suggesting is censorship that goes beyond the law. And what I'm saying is that we, I guess, have a disagreement, because I do not believe in censorship that goes beyond the law, and you do. We have a difference of opinion in that regard.
I understand that, but these are your own rules on your own platform.
Yes, you want censorship and I don't.
No, I don't want censorship at all.
Yes, you do.
No, I want responsibility.
You desperately want censorship.
No, if I want a censorship...
You want censorship so bad you can taste it.
No, that's not true. It's not true.
Yeah, but you do, Don. And poof, a massive deal that Don was negotiating with Elon and X. He wanted a Cybertruck. He wanted millions of dollars. All that went up in smoke during that brief interview. Don Lemon wants speech moderated, but also thinks he and his friends should be allowed to barge into a church and terrorize people and chase them to their cars. For Don Lemon, I guess that tracks. Joe Rigney is the former pastor of that church that Don Lemon raided, and he joins us now, City's Church. And Joe, good to have you here. Thanks for coming on. As Don Lemon and his attorneys scream about the First Amendment, I want you to describe to us what these people did to these innocent Christians as they worshiped in church that day.
Yeah, I think it's important to underscore that this is a normal Christian church. This is not a massive political church. They don't hold political rallies at this church. This church gathers to worship God every week. Yeah. They, as the pastor said when Don Lemon accosted him and refused to let him leave, we're here to worship Jesus. That's what we're about. And these people entered in, sat through half the service, stood up and began shouting. They're yelling at young children, saying your parents are Nazis, frightening, terrifying them to the point that people don't know, is this an active shooter situation? Are we about to have serious violence? And so many people fled to their cars. I can see my friend there as he's trying to get away from Don Lemon in order to go take care of his family. He has a number of small children and was worried about them. Are they okay? Are they safe? And Don Lemon says, no, I need you to have a debate with me right now about the First Amendment and whether or not my attempt right now to disrupt your First Amendment rights is protected by the Constitution.
If little old ladies singing church songs inside of an abortion clinic warrants years in prison, what did that act warrant for the people that have been charged over the last couple of weeks?
Yeah, my hope is that this isn't just a smoke and bluster and we get indictments, but we see actual trials and we see jail time. I think it's important to communicate to everyone, both sides of the aisle in every direction, that this sort of conduct is absolutely unacceptable. You do not barge into Christian worship services in order to disrupt them, in order to make a political point because you happen to disagree with one of the pastors because of where he works. Yeah. That's absolutely absurd in America in the 21st century, and jail time needs to be done because otherwise we'll get more of it.
Vile behavior, it certainly is that. Joe Rigney, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
All right, Texas Congressman Chip Roy joins us now. Sir, good to see you again. This is an interesting story with Don Lemon. The same people that cheer on when you throw church-going Americans in jail for singing hymns outside of an abortion clinic are now losing their minds after Don and these radicals stormed a church. They were telling little kids that their parents were evil and were going to go to hell. If this isn't a violation of the FACE Act, what is?
Rob, that's what's really interesting here, right? You've got a bunch of these radical leftists who go into a church. They try to break down the service where people have a right to go to be able to go forward and carry out their faith in church. And then they go, to your point, threaten children. They go disparage their parents in front of these children. And then they had the audacity when it was the Biden regime to be going after, as you point out, American citizens who were going to abortion clinics, praying at abortion clinics, trying to express their objection to abortion, and then to double down and put them in federal prison for years. Okay, so we had dozens of people who are being prosecuted under the FACE Act who are going to go be in jail for many years, elderly women. Thankfully, President Trump pardoned them. So now their heads are exploding because we're daring to say, look, you want to use the FACE Act, then maybe the FACE Act can now be used to say you're interfering with churches, and we're going to go use it because you're doing this to parents and to people who are carrying out their faith. Now, I'm not a big fan of lots of federal laws. Okay, I would personally probably get rid of a lot of the federal laws. I wanted to repeal the FACE Act because it was being abused to go after pro-lifers. But it's a law on the books, and these people are going to churches, and they're frankly threatening people because they're radical leftists who want us to bow down to their worldview, and we shouldn't do it. And frankly, we need to make sure that they feel the pain of what they were inflicting upon the other American people.
That's well said. Well said. The president is revealing his administration is going to be zeroing in on the networks that are funding all of this chaos, all of this protest nonsense, anti-ICE chaos. Take a listen to this.
We're getting very close to it, but we know pretty much who's funding this stuff. These are paid insurrectionists, paid troublemakers. I was elected by a landslide on law and order and on strong borders. We'll see it very plainly. Elections have consequences.
Elections have consequences. The people that are funding all of this and creating all this chaos, we got to get some people charged and some people in jail for this. We can't have this always in this country. It can't be like this forever.
Yeah, for the average viewer out there, not everybody understands the extent to which this integrated network exists and is being targeted against our way of life. Whether it's the Islamification of Texas and America, whether it's what we're talking about seeing unfold in Minnesota and Minneapolis, this vast array that are carrying out the fraud against the American people, whether it's George Soros, whether it's Bill Gates, whether it's United Nations funding, whether it's the long list of NGOs that are taking and exploiting taxpayer dollars to then be used in a network to undermine our freedom of way of life, to put criminals on our streets, have DAs that don't respect our laws. Yeah. All of that is happening, and God bless President Trump. J.D. Vance is on it, and Secretary Bessent has a bunch of people in his office that are working on this right now.
I need a real quick answer on this one. Don't have a lot of time left. But according to the New York Times, the president ordering DHS to stop looking at Home Depots, farms, restaurants, hotels. They want to be more conscious of the business community. The mandate was for the removal of all illegals in the country. What do you think of that, of them kind of backing off a little bit in this way?
Well, look, I think Tom Homan is the right man to be put on the job. He gets the right balance. We got to focus, and he's doing that to make sure we bring the temperature down so we can carry out and remove all the people who need to be removed. Let's remember, there are 1.5 million people currently under orders of removal from federal judges. These include violent offenders. These include nonviolent offenders who have orders of removal. Let's remove them. Let's make sure our country is sovereign and secure. The American people want their country back, and that means illegal aliens need to be removed. You can focus and target the Somalis and the bad actors and all the people that don't want to integrate, but we got to follow the law, and that includes removing all illegal aliens.
Congressman, good to see you. Have a good weekend.
Take care, Rob.
All right. Imagine freezing to death in a snowstorm. A horrific way to die. And that was a price New York's new mayor was willing to let a lot of people pay to demonstrate his tolerance last weekend. That is next.
At Del Webb, there's a lot to say yes to, especially when you can do whatever you want. From enjoying your favorite ways to move, to feeling restored on the walking trails, pocket parks, and community gardens. Plus, with innovative floor plans, homes are built for how you want to live. There's no better time to start living your way. So what are you waiting for? Say yes to Del Webb.
Champions trust Cosequin, the #1 vet-recommended retail joint health supplement brand.
It's about political
points. People deserve better fiscal.
It's terrible. Politics seeps into everything.
What do you mean? Talk about climate change or the economy or, of course, elections.
You can't find out what we should really expect to happen.
But of course you can.
Go to IBKR's Forecast Trader.
Put your money where your mouth is.
Immuno 50 may be the best food supplement in the world because it contains 70 plant minerals and 80 other nutrients. The 3 videos on our website tell you how this product and 7 times more minerals can improve your health.
At least 10 New Yorkers have tragically lost their lives after being found outdoors. We don't yet know whether every case will be ruled hypothermia, but we need every New Yorker to be on alert, looking out for their neighbors.
Quite an admission there from our new mayor here in New York. The same liberal tolerance that allows homeless people to just live on the streets that we all have to deal with is the same tolerance that also allowed them to die by freezing to death during last weekend's monster snowstorm. Our former mayor, Rudy Giuliani, writing, New York City just experienced what it means to have a Democrat communist mayor. The policy of New York City before, during, and after I was mayor, he says, was to remove homeless from the streets when it approached freezing. The incumbent mayor, because of tolerance, has changed that policy, adding during the recent snowstorm, 10 people were found dead on the streets. Isn't this tantamount to at a minimum, reckless disregard for human life? Will there be any accountability, Giuliani asks? It's a common theme for the Democrat Party. Tolerance equals death and suffering for those they're trying to appease. Immigration is another great example of that. Democrats opened our border feigning tolerance of other cultures, hoping to appear inclusive here in the United States. They allowed many people to die, thousands more to be raped and trafficked into our country, all out of love. Katie Zacharia is a legal and political strategist. Ben Ferguson is the host of The Ben Ferguson Show. Good to have you both here. Katie, killing the homeless with kindness here in New York. What are your thoughts?
Well, with Mamdani, it's play stupid games and win lethal prizes. As Mayor Giuliani pointed out, you can't have these kinds of policies and taint them as compassion, and then people die because of A, your stupidity, and also as not compassionate. You need to remove homeless, not just when it's freezing. You need to remove homeless from the street for compassion for the citizens that pay taxes and can't live in New York City and at peace with all these homeless people all over the streets, Rob.
Yeah, it was well said. Ben, your thoughts on this one? It was quite a moment he had to make that admission, because you're supposed to take these people, they can't take care of themselves. Obviously, they can't figure out how to get into a house. A lot of them have mental issues and stuff. And then for this,
But remember, this is the same mayor that does have compassion and said this week we're going to have universal child care for illegal immigrants that he's going to force the people to pay for in New York City. So that's his priority. Now, if you deal with mental health issues and you're outside and it's 7 degrees, I don't have time for you. You're not a top priority of mine. In fact, he deliberately chose to change a policy that if you talk to any homeless expert, anybody that deals with this issue, they would tell you immediately, you have a lot of people that are homeless that deal with mental health issues, schizophrenia, and the list goes on and on. If you have compassion for them, they would have told the mayor, these people will die if you don't remove them from the streets. They could go back in history and talk about how many beds are needed and how many homeless people are taken off the streets when there is a deep freeze like this. They have all that data. But for Mamdani, that he didn't care about who was going to die. It's an ideological viewpoint perspective that he's obsessed with, which is, I have compassion by not dealing with things because I don't want to disrupt people. And if they want to die, we let them die. This is no different than assisted suicide in essence. You knew people were going to die. If you put any person outside at 7 degrees, there's a very good chance they're going to die. And he deliberately made that decision. But hey, at least we have universal child care for illegal immigrants today. So we've got that.
It is something. I want to get to one more before I let you guys go. Katie, Hilary Clinton, a new op-ed in The Atlantic. MAGA's war on empathy, writing about the Renee Good, Alex Preddy shootings. The crisis in Minneapolis, she says, reveals a deep moral rot at the heart of Trump's movement. Their twisted campaign validates Trump's personal immorality and his administration's cruelty, adding about Trump's deportation approach, certainly not what I was taught in Sunday school. The very top of that piece, Katie, starts off with her claiming that Alex Preddy was murdered for being a good Samaritan. After the video we saw yesterday, you'd think The Atlantic would have thought twice about publishing this.
I don't think The Atlantic thinks twice about publishing anything that's far left and radical. And Hillary Clinton is this article was so difficult to read, Rob. She is such a hypocrite. Her husband deported 12.3 million illegal immigrants. Her husband, when he was president, the president that she was Secretary of State under deported over 5 million while he was president. I don't want to hear about President Trump deporting people and that being inhumane. And further, what she should have done is say, look, the humanitarian crisis is because these Democrat mayors and governors are not coming in support of ICE like they did under my husband and like they did under Barack Obama. So therefore, I should say support ICE and either self-deport or at least peacefully protest, but don't hurt ICE agents. I mean, she's such a hypocrite, Rob. That article was gross.
This is really, really bad. Ben, I got 20 seconds. Finish it off.
I also thought if you go read the article, there was a certain tone of, I think, disdain for people that are religious. It was almost like she was mocking Christians. And I thought that was pretty telling about Hillary Clinton, and it's pretty sick. I also go back to how many people her husband deported. This is an individual that understood that laws actually meant something. Go back and look at what Bill Clinton said. And she sure as hell wouldn't have criticized her own husband for what he did. I think we learned one thing about Hillary Clinton. She really hates people that are religious, and she'll mock and use your religion against you any chance she gets. Look, Democrats always say, never let a crisis go to waste, and she clearly is getting in on that game.
Yeah, she's also very just inauthentic, and will use any opportunity, and you lost a lot of credibility. If she had much left, she lost even more with that piece right there. Katie and Ben, good to see you guys. Have a good weekend.
Good to see you. You too.
Much of the country is a frozen block of ice tonight. As the climate cult says, we are 85 hours till doomsday. We're going to talk about climate change up next.
Don't kibble your dog.
Oh, hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, Bat.
But what's wrong with this? It's premium stuff.
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means it's ultra-processed at extremely high temperatures that destroy the nutrients in the food. But at Dr. Marty, we gently freeze-dried premium meats, fruit, and vegetables locking in their nutrients.
Never kibbled.
You got it, kid, and they're gonna love it.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work, try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Order online and save $45. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS. That's urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code NEWS.
Your data is like a single domino. The moment it's stolen, it starts a chain reaction that puts the information that guards your assets at risk. 1 in 3 Americans have been a victim of identity theft. Are you willing to risk it?
When I saw zeros on that screen as my bank account balance, I went to immediate panic.
$21,000 just gone. I opened my account and $30,000 is missing. Like $30,000. I have no idea what to do.
If your personal information is stolen, are you prepared to pick up the pieces alone? LifeLock is the leader in identity theft protection and restoration.
Once LifeLock got involved, everything changed.
With LifeLock, if your identity is stolen, they'll step in and fix it so you don't have to, guaranteed. Our highly trained U.S.-based restoration specialists contact institutions, dispute fraudulent charges, close compromised accounts, and even procure legal support far beyond the capabilities of your bank or credit card company.
LifeLock pursued this case further than I ever would have imagined.
If you call right now, you'll get LifeLock for just $9.99 a month for your first year. And as extra protection, all LifeLock memberships include the $1 Million Protection Package. Our members receive reimbursement for stolen funds and personal expenses, like lost wages, as well as coverage for lawyers and experts up to $3 million in total.
When the bank refused to reimburse my stolen money, the $1 Million Protection Package came through for me.
Our restoration guarantee and $1 Million Protection Package are included in all memberships with no additional fees.
I think it's natural to think that you can do this on your own. You can't. You need an expert in your corner.
Call 1-800-360-9220 and use promo code TV35 or go to lifelock.com/TV35 to join today.
The existential threat of climate change.
Existential threat.
You think it's cold now? That blew it away. Whatever happened to global warming?
We're asking people what happened to global warming.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure. Global warming, I think it's a facade. I think it's fake.
Does it irk you that people like Al Gore, they fly around in a lot of private jets?
Absolutely.
They burn a hell of a lot of fuel.
Emissions are still going up. When are we going to bring these emissions down?
Does it bother you that the guys that push this, though, that they're all flying around in private jets?
Yeah, that's stupid. Yeah, that's just stupid.
It is stupid. So we had a little fun yesterday. We asked New Yorkers whatever happened to global warming, right? Because it's so cold. It's a good thing that they changed the catchphrase from global warming to climate change because it is freezing cold outside. This weekend, it might snow in Tampa tomorrow. Can you imagine? When I was in Miami, it actually snowed. We could just barely see it in the little streetlights one night back in 2012. The New York Times reports climate change is fueling extremes, both hot and cold. They're trying to get in front of this obvious little issue that they have with the semantics here. The Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists members had their big moment, recently updating their doomsday clock to 85 seconds till midnight, up from 89 seconds last year. So we lost 4 seconds in just 1 year. So we're getting pretty close to the end of the world. Earth's total destruction is closer than ever. So what do we make of the hysteria? Alex Epstein is the author of Fossil Future. Steve Milloy is a senior fellow at the Energy and Environmental Legal Institute, and both are here with us tonight. Good to see you guys. Alex, your response to the doomsday clock and the idea that fossil fuels are going to soon destroy the planet?
Well, it's an interesting question of
how they're measuring doom, because if you measure doom by human life is getting worse, it's the opposite of doom. The planet keeps getting to be a better and better place for human beings to live. Now, as we see, sometimes it's too hot, sometimes it's too cold. It's actually more often too cold. Far more people die of cold than of heat. But fortunately, we have amazing fossil fuels to heat us when it's cold, to cool us when it's warm, and to build this amazing infrastructure that makes life amazing. So they're not thinking about the planet from a human perspective. They're thinking about it from a human impact is evil perspective.
Right. Steve, we've talked on this show before about the warming planet, which you've laid out well. You say that it started long before we began burning fossil fuels for energy. The planet started to go through a warming phase because the planet, as long as it's been around for a very long time, has cooled, it's warmed. One retort that I have seen to that is the admission from them. It starts with the admission from them that, yes, the Earth did begin warming sometime in the 1700s. But they say it accelerated in that warming greatly in the late 1800s when we started burning fossil fuels. And they say that is the evidence that, yeah, we're in a warming trend, but fossil fuels are exacerbating this problem of climate change and warming. What's your response to that?
Well, look, their theory is that every emission warms and drives more warming of the planet. Now, I live in Washington, D.C., and in the middle of this cold snap, actually all winter, it's been colder than it was 150 years ago. Now, how do you explain that if every emission causes warming and drives more warming, plus we have the urban heat island effect, all the concrete, asphalt, waste heat, which permanently drives up temperature? Where is all that? Well, of course, it doesn't exist. The bottom line is that, between the poles, 60 degrees north, 60 degrees south latitude, where 99.99% of people live, there's been essentially no global warming. So I don't know how they explain that. They can't. Their whole hoax is just falling apart.
It's interesting. Alex, I've thought about this a number of different ways, and I'll admit I've been captivated by arguments on a lot of different sides of this, but I think the most interesting thing about it is that the people that want you to believe that this is an existential crisis, that all of this energy that we burn in fossil fuels, that it is, and it's said time and time again. But if they want us to believe it, why is it that they burn so much themselves? And you see it with the COP, summit. You see it at Davos. You just see that the largest footprints we have are the people screaming the loudest about climate change. And they've got their jets and they've got their multiple homes. If it's really that dire, what the hell are these people doing?
I mean, you get the sense, particularly from some of this stuff, that it's not. They don't think of it as dire as they say that it is. You also see a lot of the people's opinions have shifted now that AI requires a lot of energy. A lot of my former nemeses are now on the pro-fossil fuel train. But I think, they can always say basically, hey, I'm using a little bit of fossil fuel to fly to this conference so that I can ban the rest of you from using a lot of fossil fuel. Now that's logically consistent. It's just evil because fossil fuels are necessary to do everything good, including fly. So I think the whole world should be able to fly. And if you can come up with something better than fossil fuels, great. But the idea that you're going to go to Davos to starve everyone else, even if it nets out well emissions, that's bad.
Steve, 10 seconds on the hypocrisy from the people that are screaming the loudest.
Well, what can you say? Arnold Schwarzenegger used to commute by private jet to work when he was governor. John Kerry, Al Gore, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris buying a new house in Malibu.
Malibu, yeah. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Good to see you guys. Alex and Steve, thanks so much. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Jess.
The Armada is in place. Will Trump move on Iran or not? Next.
Hopefully we'll make a deal. If we do make a deal, that's good. If we don't make a deal, we'll see what happens.
I lost 110 pounds. You couldn't tell at all because of my excess skin. Sono Bello changed that in one visit.
Introducing the new Lift EX, the just one visit, total body transformation everyone is talking about.
I am super happy with my results.
I decided to give Sono Bello a try. Look at me, I have a silhouette. You can see my waist.
Lift EX is Sono Bello's breakthrough 360-degree body lift alternative. Our body contouring experts sculpt, tighten, and lift your stomach, waist, thighs, and backside, all in just one visit with less downtime.
Sono Bello targeted the areas diet exercise could not do. I found me again.
Sono Bello has over 50,000 five-star reviews, and Lift EX is exclusively available at Sono Bello, America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist. Book your free, personalized consultation today. Easy monthly plans make your best body more affordable than ever.
This year is my year thanks to Sono Bello.
Call Sono Bello for your free consultation today.
One of my favorite supplements is Cunol Turmeric. Turmeric helps with healthy joints and inflammation support, and Cunol has the #1 doctor-recommended form of turmeric. Cunol, the brand I trust.
The poverty is unimaginable. There are people who are struggling.
This is where she washes the dishes.
If you're ever going to allow your Christian faith to rise and to do something for God's chosen people, now is the time.
This is the home of Galina. She's 96 years old.
This is what she had to eat for today.
She has one pot with water and wheat.
My father was killed by the Nazis, and I was an orphan. I didn't know about God. But now, in the cold, hungry nights, I pray for food to the God I've never known. There are good people that love you.
You see the tears. Scripture says joy can come in the morning, and you can be the reason.
If you will bless these hurting children of Israel, you will receive God's blessing in return. Your urgent gift today of $25 will help rush a survival food box filled with life-saving essentials. If you call right now, your gift's impact will be doubled to help save lives. Call, scan, or go online now.
I'm not exaggerating when I tell you, I don't know how much longer she could have waited for us to come.
I can't even grow my food anymore. What will happen to me? I'm doomed to starve.
Tens of thousands of elderly Holocaust survivors in the former Soviet Union are living in extreme poverty, hungry, and forgotten. But through the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews, we can bring them hope.
Eggs. It's my favorite food. May you be blessed.
You say to them, we see you and we're here to help.
If you call right now, your gift's impact will be doubled to help save lives.
We have a large armada, flotilla, you can call it whatever you want, heading toward Iran right now, even larger than what we had in Venezuela. We're now sending actually a larger number of ships to Iran, and hopefully we'll make a deal. If we do make a deal, that's good. If we don't make a deal, we'll see what happens.
We're all trying to figure out what's going to happen, too. An attack on Iran seems like it's pretty evident it's going to occur, we think, at some point. The way it looked earlier this week, we thought it was going to be potentially Tuesday night. This big armada has moved in just the same way as it moved in around Venezuela. There's been a lot of talk. It's an interesting situation. We now know that thousands of people were killed inside this country. And we know that Iran is the #1 state sponsor of terror and has been one of the most destabilizing forces throughout the world and certainly in the Middle East for a very long time. Knowing all of that, the question is, what is the president really going to do in this moment? This is a fight that it seemed like he was picking. Dr. Michael Savage, host of Savage Nation, joins us now. So we've got this massive armada that's now, it's all in place. And Iran is sitting there wondering what comes next. What do you think happens here?
I'm a little worried about the unintended consequences. Iran is not a country in South America run by a benevolent or dictator. It's a country, as you well know, of 93 million people.
Yeah.
And it has substantial state capacity. Thousands have died already. Okay, what are we going to do about it? Trump said we have your back. Well, maybe he's trying to show, yes, we have your back. It's coming from the right place. But we better think about that assassinating Iranian leaders, if that's what they want to do with Tomahawk missiles. It's not going to spark a democratic uprising. It'll spark a regional war, in my estimation. And it's a delusion with a long body count behind it. We've seen this before in Iraq, Libya, and beyond. So-called decapitation strikes, Rob, don't bring freedom. They bring chaos. They bring retaliation. They bring civilian death. And I think that by Trump floating it openly that we're going to assassinate leaders with U.S. troops in the entire region on the line, I'm not so sure this is such a great idea right now.
Nobody is.
And
nobody's sure it's a great idea. I agree with you there. I mean, it's picking fights in the Middle East doesn't go very well.
We have another armada. We're also ignoring something else, which I embarrassingly keep bringing up. Wars cost money. We have a runaway inflation. No one wants to talk about it. Again, I'm kind of the odd man out on this. I'm supposed to sit here and salute everything that the administration does. But it's very hard to do when you realize every bullet costs money. Napoleon bankrupted France with his wars. And I don't know how many wars we can afford. Every bomb, every bullet, every flight off an aircraft carrier. Floating these giant aircraft carriers all over the world costs a fortune. It's inflationary. Okay, say, well, fine, we have a military for something. Let's threaten them. Let's get them. I don't think these mullahs are ready to cave in, frankly. And, you know a lot more about Iran than I do. It's not simply a group of mullahs running Iran. There are many powerful ethnic minority groups in Iran. Not all of them want the United States to decapitate the leadership because they are afraid, as I said a little earlier, that it will lead to war within Iran with even more rogue factions than the mullahs taking over, which can lead to unintended consequences, such as talking about the destabilization of Iran, right? So the loss of centralized command leads to a loss of a centralized command over nuclear materials and scientists as well, Rob. And so what happens then? Do they export the nuclear materials when the central command is gone? And so even Washington's Gulf allies like Saudi Arabia do not want a U.S. strike on Iran, even though it's their arch enemy. They do not want it. They're not looking forward to this. They're terrified that it could lead to an even more crazier faction getting control of the nuclear weapons. Also, an attack on Iran could well accelerate Turkish hedging and potentially trigger a serious weapons program all over the region. And that's why I say even Arab Gulf monarchies lobbied the Trump administration against military action on Iran. They don't want it. Even the Gulf states don't want to strike on Iran right now.
The Gulf states would love to see, Iran, the leadership of Iran disappear, but that nobody wants to go through the mess of doing it, I think is the point. And then, of course, they're worried about the retaliation against, if something happens, is going to go directly at Israel. So it's very, very complicated is the greater point.
Yes, and the missiles are ready to be flying, not at Israel alone, but our troops are all over the Middle East. How many are we willing to lose in missile strikes? You say, well, I'm a nervous Nelly. I'm not the commander-in-chief. Trump's got the guts for it. God bless him.
Yeah. I gotta leave it there. But it is an interesting conversation, and it seemed like earlier this week it was going to happen. And that armada sits there poised and ready to go. We're going to have to find out what does happen. I do have to leave it there. If you've got 3 seconds.
Friday night.
Yeah.
It's Friday night.
Yeah.
The stock market's closed.
Yeah.
It's a good night for a strike.
Yeah. That's already 4 o'clock in the morning, though. It's a little late.
Well, there you
we'll
go.
See. Maybe it's Saturday night. Good to see
Rob,
you, Doctor.
thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right. Dick Morris joins us now. We're going to turn and talk about Minnesota and the rhetoric around immigration enforcement in this country. We've got the president and Tim Walz seemingly not on the same page, despite a relatively productive call earlier this week. You also have that capitulation to Tom Homan from Keith Ellison, the Attorney General, that they're going to actually allow the jails there in Minnesota to coordinate with ICE when they release a high-risk individual, an illegal alien that's of risk. What are your thoughts on the situation as it is right now, Dick?
Well, let's start with President Trump. I think that he's displayed a new maturity and, frankly, a new perspective in his handling of this situation. We would have expected him just to bull through and use force and be aggressive. But I think he realized that most of the people we're trying to deport are already in jail in Minnesota. And if you simply open access to those jails and bring those people out, you can deport them. And I think that he feels that it's best to make a deal with Walz, where we get those folks out, and there's no longer a flash mob potential of some guy trying to deport them off the street and another guy coming along and trying to threaten a cop and get a shot. And I think he feels the situation is so explosive, and it can be resolved completely. You know, we don't have riots in Texas. There are a lot of illegal immigrants. We don't have riots in New York, and even in other southern states. And I think that that's because we finesse those. We handle well.
Yeah.
So what's with Minnesota that we go crazy there?
I think what it is more than anything, I think that it was a disaster that the administration did not cause. It came from the rhetoric from the people that are operating that state. But I think that they put on the big boy pants and said, we're going to be the adults in the room and we're going to dial it down, which I think might have been the right move. And that's why Tom Homan's there. Dick, thanks so much. Good to see you.
Thank you.
All right. A look at the kinds of people who hate immigration enforcement in your country. Up next.
I'm not begging you. I'm demanding that you act with some semblance of a spine.
You prepare for the unexpected. So do we. True Work builds workwear offering technical performance fabrics and an integrated workwear system, so you can perform at your best. Work wonders. True Work.
Oh no! Our water line broke. It could cost a fortune to get a contractor to come fix it, and it's not covered by homeowners insurance.
That's why you should have HomeServe.
It's Tom Merson, CEO of HomeServe.
When your water line breaks, HomeServe sends a qualified contractor to fix it and pays for the covered repairs.
With HomeServe, the American dream of owning a home doesn't need to be a nightmare.
Plans from HomeServe start at just $4.99 a month.
Call 1-833-559-6598 or visit homeserve.com.
In theaters now.
Everyone wants to know, so here it is.
20 Days in Her Life.
I will move forward with purpose and, of course, with style.
Melania, rated PG, now playing exclusively in theaters.
As a cardiologist, when I put my patients on a statin to reduce cholesterol, I also tell them it can deplete their CoQ10 levels. I recommend taking Cunol CoQ10. Cunol has 3 times better absorption than regular CoQ10. Cunol, the brand I trust.
This is a story about the one. The one who looks to Grainger to make sparks fly. Getting it done right is a craft. It takes experience, the right material, and the right partner like Grainger with a wide range of professional-grade products. For the one, working hard means others can play even harder. Call, click Grainger.com, or stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
The darkness of bipolar depression made me feel like I was losing interest in the things I love. Then I found a chance to let in the light.
Discover Caplyta. Unlike some medicines that only treat bipolar 1, Caplyta is proven to deliver significant symptom relief from both bipolar 1 and 2 depression. And in clinical trials, movement disorders and weight gain were not common.
Elderly dementia patients have increased risk of death or stroke. Caplyta is not approved for dementia-related psychosis. Call your doctor about new or sudden mood changes, behaviors, or suicidal thoughts right away. Antidepressants may increase these risks. Report fever, confusion, stiff muscles, which may be life-threatening, or uncontrolled muscle movements, which may be permanent. High cholesterol and weight gain may occur, as can high blood sugar, which may be fatal. Common side effects are sleepiness, dizziness, nausea, and dry mouth. These aren't all the side effects.
Ask your doctor how Caplyta can help you let in the light. Find savings at Caplyta.com.
It can be hard when the ones who cared for you need care. So whether it's a caregiver at home or support at a senior living community, thenewcare.com makes it easier to find the right fit. Join now and find care at care.com.
Welcome back. Time now for news from the left. Scamming social justice warrior Monica Cannon getting a much expected break from a liberal Boston court. Cannon founded a Boston nonprofit to reduce violence. Of course, that was a scam. Is also a former Bostonian of the Year because they hand out those kinds of accolades based on nothing in cities like Boston. In September, though, this woman pleaded guilty to 18 counts of wire fraud, conspiracy, and other related charges, all related to a scheme where her and her late husband were using thousands of dollars in donations to Violence in Boston, a nonprofit, to pay for personal expenses, defrauding the city of Boston out of COVID-19 relief funds and rental assistance money. So stealing money from the people who absolutely need it most. Now get this, the U.S. District Court Judge Angel Kelly giving Monica no time in jail, sentencing her to 4 years probation with 6 months of home detention and 100 hours of community service, as well as paying back restitution. Gets a nice, sweet deal. The government recommended a sentence of 18 months in prison. She will serve no time whatsoever. Next up, a cosplaying dope in a Batman costume having a complete meltdown in front of the city council in Santa Clara, California. A grown-up baby man pretending he's a superhero is very, very angry that ICE is going to have a presence in his city at the Super Bowl here in a week.
I don't want you to sit back and watch. I want you to do something. Each and every one of these people who have came up has been very polite, very earnest, very kind, pleading you, begging you to do something. I'm not begging you. I'm demanding that you act with some semblance of a spine. Do something.
I bet he wonders why nobody takes him seriously. Next up, Trump calling out a loudmouth ABC News White House correspondent named Karen Travers, who today was barking pretty loudly questions about Trump's lawsuit against his own IRS for actions in the past for leaking his tax returns years ago. Take a listen.
Mr. President, why are you suing your own administration and the IRS? Why are you suing?
Who are you with?
I'm with ABC News.
You're a loud person. Very loud. Let somebody else have a chance.
Can you answer the
Wait a
question?
minute.
Why are you suing IRS?
ABC fake news.
You're suing.
Go ahead. I didn't call on you. Go ahead, please. Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
Do you think the upcoming
ABC, by the way, is truly one of the worst.
ABC fake news, very loud person. And next up, the Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent asked about the curious Elon Musk black eye from last year during an interview on CBS, which reportedly came after a fight between Bessent and Elon over budget cuts and IRS issues, leading Elon to allegedly shoulder check Scott Bessent. Imagine this happening, right? Elon allegedly shoulder checked Scott Bessent. Bessent hits back was the way it was described as the information had leaked out. Bessent getting asked about this in the interview, a bit coy. Take a look.
Elon Musk black guy, right hook or left?
Whoever did it's left-handed.
Are you left-handed, Secretary?
That's for the next interview. But I think his son X maybe. And he said X, they did it, so.
Well, he may have a UFC fighter on his hand then.
Well,
yeah.
I think he'd just taken X to UFC.
Yeah, the official story was that his kid bopped him with a toy or something like that, and nobody really believed it. You know, I've met both of these guys. It would actually be a pretty good fight because they're both big dudes, especially for politics. Bessent, Elon are both over 6 foot, big, strong guys. That would probably have been a scuffle if that story is true. It would have been something to see. And finally, Seattle's socialist mayor, Katie Wilson, going heavy after immigration enforcement in the city that she somehow now leads, directing her Seattle Police Department, which wants to work with ICE to try and keep her city safe, to instead waste time investigating, verifying, and documenting ICE activity, and also prohibiting ICE from staging operations on any city property. Now, just a reminder, Katie Wilson has never had a real job in her life. She's been living off of her parents' money her entire life. She's never accomplished anything except for becoming the mayor of Seattle, which is an accomplishment. She hates white privilege, which means she hates herself. And if we're going to let babies run our cities, this is the kind of behavior you should expect. She controls the entire police department of Seattle. Think about how insane that is. All right, from the country that booted him for his vaccine status, 38-year-old Novak Djokovic sends a very loud message. Great story next.
I'm Arthur Lee, inventor and CEO of LifeVac, but most importantly, I'm a dad first.
Over 10 years ago, I watched my dad design and build the first LifeVac in our garage. Now, that device has saved thousands of lives.
The LifeVac saved my life in 1-2 seconds.
It's a device that saved my son's life.
A choking accident can happen anywhere. Order your LifeVac now.
Don't wait another minute. A life might depend on it. Go to lifevac.net or call 877-543-3822.
Your Florida life is calling, and we have the answer. Valencia in Florida by GL Homes. Premium 55-plus living in 5 prime Florida locations. Gorgeous new homes from the mid-300s to $2.5 million. World-class resort-style living 24/7. Huge clubhouses, on-site dining, pickleball, and more. Effortless, low-maintenance living. Valencia, your Florida life is calling. Experience more at valenciaflorida.com.
For pain in multiple spots like here, here, or here, Salonpas patches stick firmly and remove comfortably once your pain is gone. Salonpas. It's good medicine.
Don't kibble your dog.
Oh, hey, Dr. Marty.
Hey, Matt.
But what's wrong with this? It's premium stuff.
Let's check it out. It's still kibble, which means it's ultra-processed at extremely high temperatures that destroy the nutrients in the food. But at Dr. Marty, we gently freeze-dried premium meats, fruit, and vegetables, locking in their nutrients.
Never kibbled.
You got it, kid, and they're gonna love it.
The first day back from maternity leave is so weird. We get it. Find a caregiver who does too. When it's not you, it's care.com.
If you know luxury, it's not just award-winning, it's rewarding. Saatva mattresses supports all types of sleepers. Luxury is handcrafted and assembled in American factories and brought directly to you with our complimentary in-home delivery and setup service. Which is why over 90% of customers would recommend Saatva to friends and family. Saatva, luxury mattresses made affordable.
As a neurologist, my patients are often concerned with age-related memory decline. I recommend Cunol Brain Health with 2 powerful, high-absorption ingredients clinically shown to improve memory, focus, attention, and more. Cunol, the brand I trust.
If you're over 40 and taking probiotics, stop. Americans are choking down fistfuls of probiotics, yet they're still feeling sicker and sicker and fatter and fatter. I'm Dr. Stephen Gundry, and that's why I created BioComplete 3. Thousands have used it. It's a major part of how I lost 70 pounds and feel 20 years younger. For a limited time, you can try BioComplete 3 risk-free for 90 days. Go to GundryMD.com/TV.
Just in time for our country's big celebration, the Kids Guide to America's 250th birthday is here, and it's free. Give your kids this epic story of freedom, heroes, and fireworks. Get it at freeusagift.com. That's freeusagift.com.
And finally tonight, if you got up early enough today, you got to see maybe the end of an insane tennis match on the other side of the world. From the country that bounced him for his vaccine status back in 2022, 38-year-old, very old for tennis, 38-year-old Novak Djokovic, stunning the Australian Open, beating Jannik Sinner, the heavily favored #2 in the semis. At the Aussie Open, it was a 5-set instant classic, Djokovic winning the final 2 sets of the match against Sinner, fending off multiple break points. His serve was incredible. As it was happening, it seemed like it was impossible for this 38-year-old Djokovic at the end of his career to pull off this victory against who I think is probably the best in the game right now. Djokovic mentioned his strained relationship with woke Australia right after his victory. Take a listen.
I love our passionate relationship. Every year is something different, you know. And tonight it has been one of the, if not the best night, atmosphere-wise, support-wise, I ever had in Australia. For sure. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you.
It was just an amazing tennis match. The finals will be this weekend. It'll be Djokovic versus Alcaraz. And to think, I mean, at that age in this sport, 38 versus somebody in the early 20s, to pull that off was amazing stuff. All right, Finity's up next. Have a good weekend. We'll see you on Monday.